In the ancient Persian landscape, survival required constant management of a harsh physical reality. A single dry season could collapse an entire empire's agricultural foundation. Recognizing this vulnerability, Darius the Great issued a formal plea to Ahura Mazda, the Zoroastrian creator deity, to protect his lands. He ordered this edict to be permanently carved into the cliff face at Behistun, a massive limestone rock rising above a vital trade route. The cuneiform inscription contains a highly specific pairing. Darius asks for protection from two threats, from drought and from the lie. Modern science categorizes a drought as a meteorological disaster and a lie as a moral or cognitive failing. Placing a physical lack of water on the exact same structural level as a spoken falsehood contradicts how we separate physics from morality. The early Zoroastrian worldview did not make that separation. It defined reality through asha, meaning order and alignment, versus drought, meaning disorder and distortion. In this framework, physical environments and human minds are part of the exact same continuous system. We can analyze this ancient concept using the Brain Kinematics Model. This systems theory framework maps how pressure, or strain, is regulated and transmitted across different layers of existence. In BKM, strain flows seamlessly from the physical base through neural perception up to social structures. Drought increases actual base pressure. A lie distorts this, breaking the connection and forcing upper layers to operate as if the threat doesn't exist. A drought damages the field. A lie damages the map of the field. Without an accurate map, the system loses its ability to perceive strain, coordinate responses, and survive. To test if a lack of truth is as destructive as a lack of water, we must measure them against the exact same mathematical variables. We use the total damage index. This equation calculates total systemic harm by weighting 6 variables: human damage, economic loss, social fragmentation, decision failure, structural decay, and time duration. A drought scores extremely high in immediate human and economic damage. The destruction is highly visible. This aggressive, measurable strain forces the system to react, adapt, and redistribute resources to stabilize itself. A cognitive distortion scores differently. A lie drives massive spikes in social, decision, and structural damage. By corrupting the data the system relies on, it prevents adaptation, paralyzing the feedback loop while the underlying physical threat continues to grow. We have to separate first-order damage, the immediate harm caused by the event itself, from second-order damage, which is the destruction caused by the system's reaction to the event. Lies operate primarily by deferring and amplifying strain. They suppress the first-order signals, causing the system to misallocate its response until the accumulated pressure guarantees a catastrophic second-order breaking point. A society can rebuild after extreme physical devastation as long as its information pathways remain intact. A false narrative directs the resources required for survival away from the actual threat, ensuring systemic collapse. Human communication establishes a clear baseline. The vast majority of people communicate truthfully most of the time. The bulk of daily deception is generated by a very small minority. When an individual lies, the mechanics are usually defensive. The goal is to reduce immediate, localized emotional strain, such as avoiding shame or escaping fear. These individual lies happen frequently, but they have low propagation, meaning they do not travel far, and low resistance to correction. The distortion fades out quickly against the friction of daily reality. At the organizational level, the function of the lie shifts. It moves from emotional protection to procedural accountability avoidance. False metrics and selective reporting begin to blind the institution's sensors, blocking accurate data from moving up the chain. At the apex of the hierarchy sits leadership. Here, deception occurs with the lowest frequency, but it carries the highest catastrophic potential.
A leader's lie imposes a top-down, distorted strain map onto the entire population simultaneously. It overrides local data and forces the entire system to navigate using false coordinates. This mechanism deliberately transfers the cost of the strain downward. The political elite gain temporary cover and preserve their power, while the general public absorbs the delayed physical consequences of the unaddressed problem. As social rank rises, deception ceases to be a personal moral failing. It becomes a systemic navigation failure, violently imposed on millions of people. What exact mechanical variables allow a false map to successfully override a society's natural defenses and fact-checking institutions? We calculate this using the distortion spread coefficient, a formula that measures how far and how fast a lie penetrates a network. The numerator dictates velocity. A lie achieves maximum speed and reach when it combines a high media network multiplier, intense emotional charge, and high source prestige. The denominator is correction friction. This represents the society's immune system, independent journalists, institutional reviews, and empirical data. When the numerator is too dense, it shatters the friction barrier entirely. This creates a Class 4 mass distortion. These are narratives specifically engineered by authorities to bypass empirical friction by attaching the falsehood directly to group identity and collective fear. Look at this specific claim, which asserted that 56 Muslim-majority countries were taking in 0 refugees. Independent verification labeled this definitively false. This artifact engineers a severe reality policy disconnect. It takes a complex, shared global migration challenge and reframes it as a hostile, one-sided attack, directly contradicting the actual data recorded by the United Nations. This injects massive secondary strain into the population. The false map provokes bad integration policies, drives xenophobia, and creates localized social panic among citizens who believe they are carrying an isolated burden. When highly emotional, high-prestige lies successfully overwhelm a society's correction friction, narrative fiction is directly metabolized into physical suffering and systemic division. We can track the exact chronological pathway of how a leader's false narrative physically manifests as mass public suffering. In step 1, a leader identifies a systemic strain, like an economic contraction, an infrastructure failure, or a lost war. To preserve their legitimacy, they deliberately mask the real source of the pressure. In step 2, the leader redirects that pressure. They assign the blame to a highly visible symbolic target. This is usually an external enemy, a domestic minority group, or the independent media. In step 3, the public, now operating entirely on this distorted map, mobilizes. They demand and execute a punitive response against the false target, completely ignoring the actual rotting foundation beneath them. Ordinary people always pay for a leader's lie twice. They suffer first from the unaddressed physical crisis, and they suffer second from the chaotic, misdirected violence of acting on a false map. The ancient Persians understood that civilization requires a unified continuum of order and shared reality. A society's ultimate survival relies entirely on its ability to coordinate accurate, synchronized responses to the physical world. When a truthful system is hit by physical disruption, intact informational lines instantly route repair mechanisms to neutralize the threat. But when a corrupted system is hit, broken lines send repairs the wrong way. The unaddressed impact spreads, and the entire grid collapses into darkness. This is the irreversible physical culmination for any society that loses the capacity to accurately perceive its own strain. When truth collapses in the mind, order collapses in the physical world. Darius the Great was mathematically correct. To protect an empire from collapse, you must defend both its physical environment from drought and its informational integrity from the lie.